Hey everyone, Shabby here and welcome back to another simulation here on Football Manager 2018. Now this one's a little bit of a fun one really, isn't it? I want to have a look at what would happen if you gave a non-league club a huge amount of money to spend. So we've come across here to Salford City, we give them maximum reputation and we've also given them maximum money, which is actually that's £1 trillion in their bank, and I've given them 100 million to spend on their first transfer season, and of course they've got a much bigger wage budget and a sugar daddy as well, so it'd be interesting to see if they actually spend it correctly. This one is not a very realistic one, of course, but it would be interesting to see what would happen if a club at this level did get this huge amount of money. And when I say this level, they are in the Vanarama League North, which is the lowest league in the basic version of the game. Of course you can edit in lower leagues, so yeah, this is going to be interesting. I'm liking the look of this one. I picked Salford, of course. I'm a Man United fan. And of course Salford City, heavily owned by quite a large amount of ex-Manchester United players. I can have a look at that now, can't I? Staff. Yeah, owner Gary Neville, Phil Neville, Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs. So a lot of ex-Man United players involved in the ownership of Salford City. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how they get on over the next... We'll go forward 5 years and see how they get on. That's the wrong button. And then we might go forward another 5 years and see how they got on even further. I would expect within 10-15 years for Salford to be in the Premiership. That's what I would hope. Either that or the money would have dried up and they'll be rocketing straight back down the leagues. But hey, let's have a look and find out. So let's spin on 5 seasons and see exactly how Salford have got on. Well, well, well. 10 years into the future and little old Salford City with £1 trillion in the bank have made their way not only to the Premiership, but 10th in the Premiership, which is very impressive. Very impressive. So 10 seasons it's taken them, as you can see. So we gave them the money here in 17-18, where they won the League North. Then they won the Vanarama National League. Then they won League 2. Then they won League 1. Finished 9th in the Championship. Then 2nd in the Championship. Then 13th in the Prem, 16th in the Prem, and now 12th in the Prem. It's the highest ever finished. So they've had a pretty meteoric rise. They were on a pretty meteoric rise before we even started with them, weren't they, really? But I feel like the money and the reputation increase that we gave them really did work well for them. So we've seen what's gone on. Let's have a look at their transfers over the past few years. So they started the first season, nobody amazing really. A lot of free transfers that probably they wouldn't have the money to buy unless they'd had the money from us. 450k they spent though in that division is pretty impressive, which probably won them the league. Look at this, they paid £125 grand for this guy from Leeds. They paid 130 grand for this guy from Sheffield Wednesday. So they really did show some incredible prowess and incredible what's the word I'm looking for? I don't care. That was bad, wasn't it? And then into the next season they spent 198 million. Wow. They realised they had the money and went, you know what, screw it, let's spend it. So they spent 198 million in the National League. Big one. So 1.3 million on a player from Millwall. A few free transfers. Harrison Reed from Southampton for 2.4 million. Pablo Mari from Man City. A lot of these players are still going. Carl Jenkinson from Arsenal. Ryan Nyambi from Blackburn is a player I know because he's quite big on our FIFA career. Lewis Baker from Chelsea, still going as well at Sheffield Wednesday. He spent a good few years at Salford City. And Kudu from Spurs, wow. What a signing that was in the National League. What effect did he have in Salford? Look at that, 15 games. He actually wasn't that outstanding, was he, considering he was playing at such a low division. Patrick Roberts, they brought for £50 million. Wow. 50 million quid they paid for Patrick Roberts. That is insane. In the National League, 50 million quid. Wow. Luke Shaw, 3.6 million plus add-ons. And Luke Shaw's still going actually in the Salford team. Played 231 games for Salford. Yoshida from Southampton. Chris Smalling for 4.9 million as well. Karius for 16 million. John Obi Mikel. Wow, that was a big season for him, wasn't it? Then into the next year, they only spent 24 million in the second season because obviously they had a lot of players already. They sold a couple as well. Players that probably weren't doing as much as they needed to. Phil Jones from Tottenham Hotspur for £18 million. Of course, Phil Jones must have moved to Spurs a couple of years beforehand then. And a couple of other younger players that I don't really know much about. Into the next season again, they spent £6 million, which in the league they're in is quite impressive. They sold £2.4 million worth of players as well. Then 1.8 million, but you look at some of the players they brought though. They brought Jesse Lingard in a free transfer, who's still at Salford. Played 231 games for them, got 25 goals. He scored 35. He's played 35 games this season as a 34-year-old. That's pretty interesting. Moussa Dembele, of course, the midfielder from Spurs. Reece Nelson from Arsenal, who is now moved to Crystal Palace, but he's had a pretty decent. He went. Oh, he was on loan. Okay, he was on loan. Yeah, of course he was. Yeah. This guy, I was looking at this guy earlier. Guilo Egidio Eugenio Molentino. Wow, that was a big one to get out. He had one season at Salford City, scored 30 goals in 45 games, and is now Salford City's record high goal scorer in one game. So he had a very, very good time there. The rest, a few young players. Oh, Johnny Howson, used to play for Leeds. Darren Randolph, the goalkeeper from West Ham. So again, 1.8 million spent that year. A lot of loans though. Then this was the 22-23 season. A lot of players here. Rudiger they brought as well. Antonio Rudiger, who actually finished his career at Salford for 4 years. Who else they bring in? Richarlison. Wow, Richarlison, who only played 5 games for Salford in 2 years. That's pretty... wasn't really the player they were hoping for then, was he? Again, a few young players. Anyone really... Who's the most expensive player? They spent 44 million. Where was that money spent? Victor Garcia, 9 million. Francisco Ramos cost them quite a bit as well. But he's been a good servant for them by the looks of it. 170 games, 5 goals. For a centre defensive midfielder, wasn't bad. And then Victor Garcia as well. He's still there as well. They've got quite a few older players now though. That could be the problem for them. They need to try and freshen things up, which in the next season they did by spending 157 million. This is their first year in the Premiership, I think. Then 157 million. Where was that money spent? 10 million on Tovan, who played 45 games, only scored 1 goal across 3 years. That wasn't a very good signing for them, was it really then? 29.5 million on Sandro, who's again a striker who's only scored 39 goals in 131 games. That's not that impressive either. Ryan Bertrand on the free transfer. Tom Davis, 15 million with 20 million pounds of add-ons. He's done pretty well. Well, has he really? 117 games, 10 goals. He's only a midfielder, I suppose, isn't he? So you're not expecting too much for him. Don't really recognise any of the other names. Kevin Andrade is a fake player. I recognise that name from somewhere though. Then the second season in the Premiership, didn't buy as many players, but still spent 28 million. Zakari Bakali, he's been knocking around for a while. He has now, on FIFA games and that. Andrei Ivan, Romanian striker, looks like their main striker at the moment. It's pretty solid with his goal scoring, nothing special, but pretty solid. And a player from Stoke as well, French left back. Then the 25-26 season, they did not spend a lot at all that season, did they? Wow, they brought in a player from Newport County, who's obviously just a youngster they're building up, I suppose. Ben Gibson from Inter, who... Yeah, Ben Gibson was at Spurs, and Spurs sold him to Inter, and then Inter sold him to... Inter paid 22... Oh, sorry. Inter got him on a free transfer. Wow. Liverpool player on loan. That's pretty interesting to have a loan in the top division. Then this season they spent 86 million, which is pretty good. Matt de Graaf. Yep, he's a... Oh no, it's a different de Graaf. Oh, it's not bad though, 19-year-old. Player from Crystal Palace, Persher. Not a bad centre-back. Maybe not the best. And that's really the most... Oh, they got Will Hughes as well, actually. Who's 32-year-old now, but pretty solid. He's had a pretty good career at Arsenal. Didn't actually play a single game, did he? So let's have a look at the overview of the history of the club. They've won the Sky Bet League 1, the League 2, the Vanarama National, the Checkatrade Trophy twice, the FA Cup and the Vanarama League North, and the Northern Premier Division 1 as well. So they've really just won everything they've ever been in, haven't they, really? Competitions, yet again, they've just won everything, really. They've won the FA Trophy twice. They've gone runners-up in the Carabao Cup once as well. They don't look like they've ever really had a good run in the FA Cup, does it really? Landmarks, don't need any of that sort of stuff, do we? Managers. Oh, this should be interesting. So they had Anthony Johnson. He did pretty well. He left the role of manager after 10 years and 30 days in charge in 2025. Okay, yeah, so I got confused there for a second. He was there for 10 years, Anthony Johnson. What's he doing now? He's still a manager. Not a fantastic manager, but I think he just had it easy, basically. Then Lewis Craig took over 7 days as a caretaker before they finally hired Eddie Howe, who's now been there for 2 years, and he's doing pretty well. So not as many managers as I thought. Record, here we go. So highest league position was 7th in the Premiership in the 26-27 season, which is this season now, isn't it? They're joint 7th, I think, aren't they? Attendances, highest was 12,500 against Aston Villa. Looks like they've actually got a stadium upgrade and they've just been selling out by the looks of it. I don't know, because they had a home game there against Chelsea. They got 23,000. That's interesting. Results, biggest wins. Nothing amazing really, is there? Just 4-0s and that sort of stuff. Nothing crazy like I would have expected. Biggest defeat was only 3-0. Highest scoring games. Sequences. Most games won in a row was 4 this season. But let's look at some of the earlier seasons. 18, 13, 17. 4 wins in a row isn't bad in the Premiership, to be honest. Most goals in a season. It's been Andre Ivan for the last 3 years. There we go. That's that guy they had on loan from Liverpool in the Championship. 35 goals in 1 season. That was pretty impressive. And transfers. There we go. The biggest transfer they brought was Jada Silva from Everton. 17.8 million. But their biggest transfer overall. Where's the one? Well, I'm sure there we go. 38.8 million. Patrick Roberts from Manchester City. That's their biggest transfer in history by the looks of it. I could have looked at this really, couldn't I? Most points in a season was 124 in the 2018-2019 season. Most wins in a season was 39, which must be more or less every single game. Fewest defeats in a season was 0. Yeah, that makes sense. Highest gate receipts was that game against Chelsea. Biggest win was against Ebbsfleet, 5-0. Biggest transfer was Patrick Roberts. Biggest transfer he received was Uros Juvekovic, if I pronounced that right, from AC Milan. Most goals in the season. Most league appearances is Loris Karius, which is not a surprise really, the goalkeeper. Youngest ever player was Jacob Martin. Oldest player was John Obi Mikel they had for a while. Fastest goal was 10 seconds by Andre Ivan against West Ham. Most goals in the game, Sam Gallagher with 4. Patrick Roberts with most goals and most assists in a season, 16. Most player of the matches was 9. So they've had a pretty damn good career really, and they've consolidated themselves in the Premiership, as we said. 10th position this season is very impressive. The current team they've got is looking okay as well. Still got Karius in goal. Jada Silva, the player, he's a real player, isn't it? Yeah, he is, yeah. The player they just literally brought last season, doing pretty well for them. Tom Davis, of course, ex-Everton player as well. Not being outstanding as such for them, has he? No, he's never really hit a 7 rating in a season, but still done pretty well. Jesse Lingard, he's had a good career for them and joined them when they're in the Championship on a free transfer. And from then he's been okay. He's not been outstanding. Again, he has hit 7+ ratings, which is very good, but still not really set the world alight. But then again, at this sort of level, it's very difficult to do that, isn't it? And Andre Ivan, of course, their top goal scorer over the last few years, 39 goals in 98 games, shows he's actually a pretty damn good player. So that's what happens when you give a non-league side £1 trillion. Now, let's see how much, before we finish this off, let's see how much money they've got left of that. Finances, they've got... So we gave them 1 trillion, which is 1,000 million, and they've still got 877 million pounds left. So they've only really burnt through 130 million to get to 10th in the Premiership from non-league, which is not bad when you consider that's probably what Man United spent altogether in the summer. That's not bad whatsoever. So it shows that if you do give a non-league team a lot of money, they can work their way up the leagues without too much difficulty. Of course, we did give them a higher reputation as well, which allowed them to sign some pretty massive players. But you'd think that if they had the money, they would be able to attract really good players really easily at the lower levels and just basically rush up the leagues like they did. The only league they got stuck on was the Championship, which they had to repeat once and they come second place and got promoted anyway. So there really was a clear run for them. And I feel like if we simulate the game another 10 years, it'd be interesting to see exactly where they got to. Now they're in the Premiership, they're getting £100 million a year TV money. They're probably actually making money now rather than losing it. If they increase their stadium and so forth as well, they're just going to get stronger and stronger. I see Salford City really consolidating themselves in this league for many years to come. And yeah, I think they'll do pretty well. So that is what happens when you give a non-league side £1 trillion. They actually do pretty well and build themselves up pretty nicely. Of course, if you have enjoyed this Football Manager 18 simulation, then please do hit a like. And of course, if you want to see some more, then hit a subscribe as well. I've been Shabby Gamer. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you very, very soon for another Football Manager 18 simulation. Bye.